love yourself enough to know that you're worthy of it all.
Welcome to And Then I Did This. Prepare to be inspired as we celebrate the unique journeys of individuals who've had the courage to break free and live life on their own terms. Their lives prove that you truly can be free to live your best and most authentic life. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest today, Adriana Gourian-Tehrani, who is a healer and many other things. And I'm going to let her introduce herself a bit and start a little bit of share about your journey and how you got where you are.
My journey has been interesting. I guess to start from birth, literally, I'm a triplet. I have two brothers. So that adds on to like the complexities of my life, I guess you could say. Then I grew up in LA-ish and went to college, got my career in accounting because that's what I was good at. I didn't love it. I was just good at it. But that led me, now I'm in it like 16, 17 years. I don't know how long, but I always felt like a little bit uncomfortable in my life. Like I always felt like I was missing something, very alone, very abandoned, even though I'm one of six and I'm a triplet. And then I got into the healing arts because I just got really curious of like, what's out there? What am I missing? I went to traditional therapy. I didn't feel like it was working for me. And then I realized I just numb. I numb my emotions. I numb my thoughts. And that's why therapy for me didn't work because they weren't calling out my thoughts. And so going into the healing arts, like I started with Reiki and understanding like what parts of the body mean what. From there, I went into life coaching with eating, breathwork, where I met you. I do ancestral healing now. I do fascial releases, which has been so incredible. So bodywork. And it's all because I was so curious about what was wrong with me. Feeling alone. And then I realized how many people really need me just by talking, just here and there. And I'm like, wow, that many people need me. And so I just got more curious, like, what am I still missing? Because I felt like I was good. And I'm like, but I know something's missing. And then I found the next thing and I'm like, wow. So I feel like really complete now with understanding like what stories are hidden in our DNA, in our body, in our thoughts. And I get to call out people in the most beautiful way. Like if they say something, I can feel if there's guilt or grief or heartbreak just by the words they use and just, from intuition. It's been so great to feel so whole.
Wow. I had no idea you were a triplet. How interesting.
It's different because my family doesn't really talk to their own siblings. So I'm not close with my brothers, but it's just different because you don't have your own identity. You don't know what it feels like. For so many years, at least 20 plus years, I felt like I always had to celebrate my birthday with them. Now we don't celebrate it all together. But now I get to be my own identity. I'm my own person, but I felt so guilty of like doing things without them. And now it's like, no, you get to be you. Like I'm not them just because we have a similar DNA and we're very different. So that's kind of funny too.
Yeah. And I love the journey and everything you just touched on with where the world is at. And I believe with 2024 being the year of exposure and as we've all been, I'll say since really 2020 on this accelerated path of awakening and being either forced to look at what's happened in our past or what has led us to where we are, people are needing more modalities and more support to go within and heal. And I'm just curious, it sounds like you have so many different things that you can help people with. How do you weave them together and where do you find people are needing the most support?
So I weave them differently. I try to meet people at their income level and at their comfortable level. So some people who are really heavy in emotions, like always crying, always angry, I start with just simple, like calming Reiki, like feel what energy feels like, when your, foot gets numb, that's like a little energy, but they don't realize that. So, because I have a lot of starters in this world. And then other people where they're like, I don't have a high income. Where do I start? I'm like, breathwork. Breathwork is the cheapest way to get to me, but not, full access to one-on-ones. And that has been incredible. They're like, wow, all these things that came through. Again, I get a lot of beginners, they've never done breath work. And, like a lot of people think, they just think, oh, it's breathing. It's like, okay, no, it isn't, but sure. And so that's been incredible. And then from there on, it's just calling them out with love. Like, hey, I can feel the emotions in your body are a story. And so Sometimes we go physical on the fascial level, which is more recent. I really start people on ancestral stuff because a lot of the weight we're carrying is DNA. And when they get to understand that the ways they think, the fears that they're the patterns that they're recreating is related to their mom, dad, uncle, aunt, who knows, then they get to like just open the world differently in their minds, right? And just feel more relief from it. They can dig into, I meet people where they need to go.
Right. I know that lots of people, I will say, are just as you shared initially, typically think, oh, I'll go to a therapist and get over whatever this is that I'm going through. And I share the same belief, I think, as you, and have felt that regurgitating the past is not bringing me into the present or the future where I need to go. What are some signs that anybody listening to this, okay, if you've done this and it hasn't worked, or if you're experiencing this, take this step next?
So with therapy, I can say I have a lot of clients who are in therapy, and I also have therapists as clients. So them realizing themselves that they need help too. And so therapy is a lot about talking, right? And you can get some emotions out. I think the difference is understanding like talking to someone isn't enough anymore. Even talking to your friends, you end up complaining about yourself. You end up complaining. And so a lot of talk therapy, not to say all of it, but some, and therapy is also changing, which is a beautiful thing, depending on the therapist, of course, is that talking isn't enough. So what I say is talking and energy. So if you're still holding on to like heavy emotions, if you're still very angry, like you talk to a therapist and you're still like, I don't know what to do with my life. I just like numb, angry. Like I think of emotions. If you're even carrying pain in the body, those are all messages. And people, the life we live in is let's go straight to prescription. Let's go straight to numbing in the sense of like antidepressants. And then they're like, but I still feel lost. I don't feel like any emotion. I don't know where to go. And so that's when it's like, hey, you're numbing because of an emotion that you're holding on to. And the biggest thing I say is the diseases we're carrying are all related to emotions. Whether yours, whether your ancestry, whether being empathic, you're taking on someone else's energy, the pain and the disease is an emotion. So if you don't understand where it's coming from, that's what I'm here to help you wake up to.
Wake up and figure it out. I know. I think of that book. I've been listening to the author of The Body Keeps the Score, and just the reality of how our bodies are resilient and will keep going, even though, as you said, there's a pain here or a pain there, or holding something in. If we hold something in and don't deal with it, it will come out in uglier ways as we get emotions.
And people get upset when people pass too soon. Cancer is the same thing. Cancer is a disease. It's an emotion that's stuck. It's not speaking up. It's not being loved. It's hating someone for so long that you're holding on to the weight and they're not. So like people don't realize like everything, including the people that pass, there's a story behind it.
Right. Talk a little bit about the ancestral healing, because that sounds so interesting.
It's been fascinating. I love it so much. I've been doing it for
light up. Yeah, you light up. Right.
I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now. This ancestral healing I do is almost like coaching with energetics or therapy with energetics. So the body tells us the right side is masculine and the left side's feminine. And so the body tells us like, hey, I don't have enough self-worth. Like I feel like I'm missing self-worth. I'm like, okay, let's do an ancestral alignment. Let's see what comes through. And it's like a somatic and energetic kind of session. We literally go backwards because the back of our body is our past. And so the pain that we're holding on to, a lot of people have back pain. It has to do with our ancestry. It has to do with the past, not past lives, but our past. Like it could be yesterday, it could be 10 years ago that you're holding on to, the burdens, the inner child, all that stuff. So we literally go backwards. One side is masculine and one side, or mom's side, one side's dad's side. And we've been able to uncover stories of like sexual trauma, of not being loved. And when I say like not being loved, so it's like for the women out there, I've had a lot of miscarriages and abortions. There's a lot of guilt that is being held within that. And in the past, they didn't have, obviously they didn't have things to help you miscarry, or there's still abuse related to that. There's still so many things that related to how you can miscarry or abort, right? And a lot of the women, when we miscarry, or abort, we're holding on to the guilt of like, shoot, we should have had that kid. Or shoot, why didn't they survive? Whatever it
What
is, right?
happened? Right.
Exactly. And so most of the time, that energy actually is a pattern from the lineage. So if I tell you, hey, did your mom experience this? Or did your grandmother experience this on either side? They're like, yeah, they did. I'm like, yeah, it's a pattern because they didn't feel love. We magnetize based off what we're used to. And what we're used to is based off what our ancestors did, right? So it's understanding the patterns. And it's as simple as like, hey, grandmother, and we literally speak out loud because it's an energy that we're speaking out loud. And we say, grandmother, I understand you had a miscarriage. I understand you didn't feel loved in that moment. You didn't feel seen. You couldn't speak up. You felt like you were a fraud because you couldn't create that baby. But grandmother, that baby wasn't supposed to be. Our life was supposed to be different. And you could just feel the body just start melting. Like it's no more, it's not tense anymore. It's like, oh, I'm finally telling my story. And then it starts getting released. And then it's like, oh, wow. So that story is no longer in your body. Therefore, you're not magnetizing it in your future lineage or in just in your body. Like you literally feel so calm in the body, and people walk out, they're like, what just happened? I'm like, you let things go.
Right. Absolutely. That sounds like everyone has that going on, and very
Oh,
few
yeah.
have a way to process or deal with it, and then also be ready to do it and be willing to do it.
Yeah. I think willing to do it is the most because people don't know.
What they don't know. Right.
And they hear, oh, yeah, that happened to my mom. Or think of like a lot of breast cancer, especially in women, and they're so scared and they test positive for DNA or something. Well, yeah, because the breast cancer is all about love and it's all about feeding your children. And if there's a trauma held in the ancestry related to that, you're going to remanifest it as if you're not aware of it. So, yes, it's real, but people are just like, oh, let me just go to the doctor. They'll figure it out. Oh, I tested positive. I'm just going to take, like certain things. There's other ways to like heal your body. It's not through traditional ways anymore. It's like hiring coaches, hiring healers that aren't traditional healers to help you see that.
Right. Because I'll say, I think our traditional medical system is not about healing. It's like the pill for every ill, because I'm thinking back to one of the comments you made earlier around how people, I think in the world in general, people are so wounded, and medicating through drugs, alcohol, shopping, sex, or prescription drugs, like can wind up being like a life sentence of taking medications to not feel or to cope with life, to be able to get through whatever's next. And it is harming so many people. And because it's the way we've all been indoctrinated until we wake up, it becomes just the way of being. So thank God there are healers like you who are out there giving other options. Talk about the breath work a little bit, because I know I've not had anyone on the show who is a breath work facilitator. So that I think this will be interesting for people.
So breathwork has been, transformational for me because I didn't realize, breathwork is so many years of therapy without saying one word in one session, right? And another thing about breathwork is when we oxygenate our body, we actually release the negative toxins, the negative beliefs, the limited beliefs that are stuck in the body. So doing the consciousness of like self-care through breathwork has been so incredible because you're having to push through. We breathe normally, but then when you're doing the specific type of breath work, we're having to push through something we're not used to, a barrier we're not used to. We're having to breathe a specific way for 30 to 45 minutes, in a specific way that you're not used to. But then knowing, especially, and I usually do it in groups, and when there's other people doing it, you're like, okay, I can keep going. I can keep going. If they're going, I can keep going. It's telling your body you're safe. And a lot of people don't know what safe in the body feels like. And we have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. And so, although breathwork can be uncomfortable, I make sure I have good music to keep you going. And I'm always talking out loud. I'm holding space for you too. So you're not alone in this, right? Breathwork, understanding that oxygenating your body is where your happiness comes from.
Exactly. Exactly. I think, anyone listening to this right now, if you were to take a deep breath, it would be from the chest up. But we don't.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. We forget how to do diaphragmatic breathing, where we are literally breathing from deep into our bellies, like babies and puppies. That's how they breathe. And we forget how to do that as we tense up in life. which is understandable.
We don't realize that that's the breathwork modality. But in my sessions, in my other sessions, I could hear it just by their breathing what the emotion is without them even realizing what the emotion is. Because if you think about it, like when we're like we're like uncomfortable, I'm like, okay, is anger coming up? It's grief coming up. Like I could hear it already just from like how they're breathing. And a lot
Right.
of us don't realize it, but we sigh a lot. We're like, and it's like, why you weren't breathing? What are you
Right.
scared of? That's a tension in the body. Like, oh, I'm scared. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And you're not breathing.
Right. Exactly.
And so just learning the breath and understanding how you breathe is already so key.
I'm just thinking of like all of the corporate environments that all of us, that many of us have been in, lived in. I mean, I lived Mad Men for a long time and just the stress of that. And I didn't know breath work back then. I only knew therapists. Like that was it. And that was helpful. And it can be a stopgap until you learn other modalities and things that you can use. So accounting, are you still doing that or are you out of it?
So last year, a year from now, actually, I had a major panic attack, literally nervous attack, whatever you want to call it. And I lost control of my body for 10 minutes. I was going crazy. And I'm like, that it was related to accounting. And then my husband saw me and he's like, you're done. So I'm not done. I went part-time to be comfortable in the transition of building more clients and in transition of like feeling safe in my body. So I am still in it and I'm grateful for it because that part honestly is easy. Like life gets to be easy now because I've been with this company for 5 years and I love helping people heal. So I'm almost in like the best case scenario and understanding corporate still because I do corporate breathwork. I did one in the summer a couple months ago. Oh, it's incredible. It was so incredible. Everyone was open to it. People were just so many people were with their eyes open, but the people that did go all in, they're like, what just happened to me? I'm like, yeah. So I was so grateful. So like being part of corporate still gives me the mentality of like still being in corporate so I can attract more corporate people. But also like I love Excel spreadsheets and accounting is all about being analytical. Like why did X and Y happen? Why is it this year versus last year, right? And that's actually helped me become who I am now because that's the
The
emotion.
yin and yang, right, right. So talk a little bit about the corporate breathwork, because I'm sure there are many people listening to this who are in corporate environments and maybe even interested in what is that she's doing with coming in. And I mean, I know that it is definitely a benefit from a health perspective and for a wellness option for employees. So talk a little bit about that, how people can take advantage of that.
So I feel like corporate breath work is not just on the wellness, it's also on the personal development. So people talk so much about wellness, but if you put both of them together, I think that's where it's like, hey, and doing it as a group, as like a team environment. I mean, you never forget your first breath work. I mean, you don't forget most of them, as you do it more often, different story, right? But you never forget your first couple, right? And I think corporate needs it. There's so much stagnation. There's so much tension of like doing things. And a lot of people are in it because they're used to it. They're in it because they don't see themselves anywhere else. And that's okay to a certain extent, right? If they want life to be this way, that's okay. But it's knowing that you can be healthier, knowing that the company actually cares about your wellness. And it's been beautiful in the sense of like the opening of corporate, like them wanting to have that for their, employees. And a lot of the sessions happen when there's like a weekend of wellness or a weekend of personal development or not a weekend, but like a couple days, right? And that's bringing the breath work. And, it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're having fun in a sense. Like there's good music. I always make sure I have good music. I always make sure it feels good for the people because, we have different ages, we have different genres that you want to get into. And then just coming out like and integrating like what just happened because that needs to be talked about as well.
Right. Absolutely. I'm going now to like more one-on-one breath work. Like how young can someone be to do a session? Because I'm thinking, I know there are so many teens that are definitely dealing with life things that this is so beneficial and can be so helpful.
I feel like you really can be as young as 10 or 11, but I don't think you're aware of it. So I feel like it really has to hit like puberty, 14, 15, where they're like, I'm tired of feeling this way. I don't know what to do. Or their parents don't know what to do. So it's like, guiding them towards the right person. A lot of the people I've been attracting have been ranging from like 27 to even like 60, 70. I've had a few, and they've prized at what comes through. They're like, oh, it's just going to be breathing. Like, oh my gosh, I cried. I'm like, told you, So it's age doesn't matter. Do they want to be there? I think that's the biggest thing. Even in corporate, there's a lot of people who don't want to be there and they're almost forced to be in a situation. Whereas like the one-on-ones and the groups that I have, they get to be there. They want to be there. So
Right.
the session's even more powerful.
Right. Yeah. And if people don't realize what they're holding on to, and once they let go of that, drop the rock, like you said earlier, a lot of times people are holding on to resentments. They're holding on to it. The other person they've moved on. The other person is living their best life, but they're holding this hot burning rock. And once they let go of it, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't need to be carrying that.
Exactly. And it's realizing that whatever you're carrying, it doesn't need to be told to that person. It's just within you because the energy is within you.
Exactly. So I know also that it's a process to take the steps to transition, even to expand into the growth area, the healing modalities that you have pursued. What advice would you have for someone who may feel they know they have the urge maybe to do something else, to pursue some other training of some sort, but they don't know what to do? What are some words of advice you would give people who might be feeling stuck but want to do something else?
Go with their heart. Go with their heart. You could do so much research. And the reality, even with research, you don't see reviews on a lot of positive people. They're usually like forced or like, hey, do you want to review? People who are a little more out. Whereas I was more shy and worked through that, right? But for the people who are shy, they're not giving their review of something. But it's really heart-centered, like what feels right for you, because there are so many modalities now. And that's the most beautiful thing. There's so many ways to create your own path and to create your own life. It's really knowing that you deserve better. And if there's something missing, it's almost like let go, let God, or write it down and allow the signs to come through in the next couple of days, into weeks to tell you, hey, is that supposed to be? Because you'll notice conversations change or they're different from certain people, or you have a random conversation with someone at the store, you're like, wait, I'm supposed to do that or something. That's how I found the modalities that I keep growing into. And it's changed completely who I am in so many different ways. Love yourself enough to know that you're worthy of it all. You're worthy of learning that stuff and it's going to impact you.
Yeah, absolutely. To be open to the signs, and their serendipities happen for a reason. And as long as you're open to a miracle, or you're open to not being stuck where you are, and if you're miserable, life is too short. I know I had read something just recently that it talked about we can spend money and get it back, but if we spend an hour or two, we can't get that time back. There's no way. You can't buy time, really. You can buy time in a meter to protect yourself from getting a ticket. But, other than, so to be just really conscious how we spend our time.
Yeah, that's really good. It's also surrounding yourself by the most positive people. I think that's probably the next one. Because when you surround yourself by positive people who are doing the same thing, which I'm not going to lie, there's not a lot of people in my world. So I'm so grateful for the people I've met so far. And honestly, in the online space and in the workshops that we've done, because in my world, there's not a lot of people trying to do the personal growth that I'm doing. So find the people who are doing the personal growth to help to guide you, right? And like you said, it's not about the money all the time because the money's going to keep coming. So sometimes investing in yourself in the right mentor will help push you forward.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Find your tribe. Yeah. Your circle gets smaller, and the more your vibration goes up and the more healing you do, the less you're willing to accept the lower vibration, like the chaos, or less receptive or open to drama or that kind of dynamic. So
Agreed. In the beginning of the journey, you don't know what low vibration is. You don't know who's right or wrong. You just have to let actions speak for themselves and know that it does get smaller, but it's not supposed to hurt you. It's supposed to actually expand you in a different way.
yeah, absolutely. And the more you read and the more you study, the more you realize everything is vibration, everything is frequency. I mean, Tesla was brilliant for a reason. I mean, energy was around well before they were born. So, I mean, energy has always been, and to be aware of the positive versus the negative and staying in alignment and doing the healing modality, anything you can do to improve whatever state you're in, to let go of things. And we talk a different language, like let go of low vibration energies, like let go of hurts, pains, things that have happened. Find a healer, reach out to you, whatever people can do to be free, which is
to know that they deserve to be free, to know that happiness is a permanent thing. It's not just, most people's happiness is like short lived, and the anger, the resentment is long lived, right? It's like we get to flip it.
Which is so beautiful, Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to include all of the links to get in touch with you in the show notes. And I don't know if you have any final advice for someone who may know after listening to us that they need to do something to let go of some things from the past, or could be from the recent. What advice would you have for people?
To listen within. If something doesn't feel right, it's okay for it not to be right. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to get upset at specific people, and knowing that you deserve better. And sometimes standing up for yourself is the hardest thing you can do, but it's also the most liberating thing you can do. Knowing like your biggest fear is also your biggest lesson. It's also your biggest breakthrough.
Right. Yeah. And as you said, life is happening for us, not to us.
Exactly.
Flip the script.
It's not easy, but it's meant for us to want to live.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And that's a wrap on another episode of And Then I Did This, celebrating the lives of those who've walked away from the beaten path to pursue work and a life that nourishes their soul. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore your own path to freedom, check out youcanbefree.life, where you'll find resources and support to help you break free and live life on your own terms. See you next time.